Hello to all participants. Good morning, and thanks for joining our third webinar from the Bioeconomy Giants project. Today, we will have two sessions. The core session will be devoted to provide two keys to develop the business model and main aspects to consider for the market uptake. Then a second session devoted to share with you some examples with two companies that we share how their journey has been to develop their business. Then we will have a short time for questions and answers. So if you have any questions while these two sessions go on, please write it on the chat, and then we will come back to them during the question and answers. And then I will summarize the materials that will be delivered together with this webinar in our webpage. Okay, so we can go ahead with the first session. And for that, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Francesco Manconi, which is a senior business and innovation consultant with over 6 years experience in supporting EU-funded bioeconomy and sustainability projects in Eurozone 2020 and Eurozone Europe course. He holds also an MBA in business administrative and in law, combining with a strategic development in IPR, and also with financial expertise. His work has focused on business modeling, market uptake, exploitation strategy, and also access to finance, especially for SMEs and innovation projects. He's a former managing director, and he has advised startups, clusters, consortia on how to work at their market strategy, their investment readiness, and sustainable business model. Francesco, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Maida. Thank you very much for that nice introduction. I'm very happy to be here, and I welcome everybody to the webinar also from my side. I suspect everybody's in a nice warm part of Europe. I'm still stuck in Austria, in Vienna. And although it has been cold lately, today we've got a bit of sunshine for the first time, so that's very nice. And I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very honored to be here. As per the intro, yes, I've had this long-standing experience in business modeling in the real world scenario and at project level. But for me, my inclination is always to try to move away from the theoretical and the textbook and really to look at the practical. So be it in projects and be it when I'm working with SMEs and trying to advise them on a consultancy level, my role is always, but will it work as a business? That's the question that I always want to ask. And I'd like to today provide you with some insights that I've picked up on this topic at my level of experience. So we will then start with the presentation. Today we're going to be looking at these business models and market uptake. Just to link it with previous sessions, Webinar 1 looked at identifying the side stream potential, and Webinar 2 dealt with prioritizing and structuring these opportunities through a strategic road mapping. Today we'll move to the next critical question, and that is, how do we turn these opportunities into viable business models that ensure real market uptake? And by the end of the session, I hope that we can have a clearer understanding of how business model thinking supports the deployment of bio-based initiatives, and how to connect technical potential with real demand, and how to help our members recognize when an opportunity is ready to move towards investment and possible scaling. The session is designed from the perspective of a cluster and intermediary organizations, in helping them to advise members and acting as sector intermediaries. So the focus is not on running the business yourselves or by myself, but on coordinating and enabling a viable market solution, and crucially in embedding this business mindset in your members, be they innovators, farmers, SMEs, rural service providers. So from roadmaps to economic reality, it is our experience that bio-based initiatives carry a lot of good and a lot of great intention, but that in the end, the initiatives often fail at a later stage, and not because the technology doesn't work, but because in the end, it seems that there's no clear market demand for the product, for that value that's been created, or that in fact the value proposition has got weaknesses, that it's not competitive, that perhaps the costs turn out too high to sustain, and that pricing that is allowed by the market doesn't allow for enough margin for an economic sustainability of the ongoing innovation within the marketplace, or that partners are not sufficiently aligned around a viable business case, a viable value chain. This partners being aligned is also very, very key. And for this reason, technical and resource planning, in my view, must go hand in hand with business and market validation throughout the stages, and we're going to look at that. So progress on one side alone is not enough. Even the most innovative side stream solution will require investment, coordination, and should be able to show a possible return on investment to be economically sustainable. There are opportunity costs at stake, and the innovators and the farmers and actors cannot be expected to invest their time and labor and resources for the sake of good intentions alone. There needs to be a clear economic logic and at least sufficient risk reduction to make the participation economically sustainable over time. So I find a helpful way to look at this is to think about business modeling as two parallel tracks that we need to keep in mind. The first track will focus on technical and operational feasibility. We will look at things like feedstock availability, processing options, logistics, and partners to make sure that we can actually deliver. And the second track will focus on market and business feasibility. We will ask questions like who will buy the product, why would they buy the product, what price would they be willing to pay for that product, and importantly, under what conditions and contractual arrangements. And as clusters, I think your role is to ensure that these two tracks inform each other, stay present in your members' minds, and then also to introduce decision points where non-viable options can be adjusted and maybe even stopped early if necessary. And this is not, of course, about stopping innovation, but it is about reducing the risk and focusing resources where the market potential is real. So bioeconomy business models are challenging. As we know, the bio-based initiatives are technically driven. For example, technologies such as biogas production or the development of bio-based materials from agricultural residues are often developed because they technically can transform residue into energy or even new products. But when commercial scaling is considered, this is when the problems and the cracks start to appear. A process that could work theoretically very well at lab scale may turn out to be too energy intensive or too expensive when it's operated continuously and at larger scale. Often a technology may perform well in a controlled feedstock environment during like an experimental phase where you have your feedstock there and present and validated, but struggle in the real world with real variable raw materials. Similarly, a pilot, which might rely on like real expertise within the piloting plant, may turn out to not be replicable economically in the real world when we consider the labor costs of those expertise to have them present within the structure. And even when the technology performs as expected, the initiative may still fail if there's not enough stable demand from the market to justify, and here's my keyword, a medium to long-term supply chain. So similarly, when we look at the business logic and examine it more closely, further challenges appear. The production costs might be higher than what the market will accept. The price competition with established fossil-based and conventional alternatives may be too great. There might be too great a disparity. And the fact that often feedback for this feedstock for these systems is by its nature biodegradable, this degradation can often be out of sync of the demands of the processing vis-a-vis the market demand. So it might be that the feedstock is not available when the market would actually like to have those products or that energy output. And then there's obviously remaining uncertainty regarding standards, certifications, regulatory approval. In this, I think back of a situation under one of the projects where we built a biogas plant um, uh, within the project, but all along we were waiting for the permits to come through, regulatory approval from the municipality. And in the end, it did not come through. And in the end, we had to dismantle everything and undo all the good work of months of work. And this decision point, we should have reached that decision point before expending all of those resources. So there's always lessons to be learned, but this is the reality. Sorry, I seem to have gone moved the wrong way. Okay. So we must underline, I think also that bioeconomy business models are often more complex for these reasons than conventional ones. Um, As I said, feedstock season can be seasonal and dispersed. The logistic costs in a bioeconomy model can actually be significant. Markets are often still emerging, and overall, the sustainability and value proposition can be undermined, even if there are just small inefficiencies or high impacts anywhere along the supply chain. So for it to be a strong bioeconomy model, we need to look at every aspect of the supply chain to make sure that we are not causing more, if not more damage, but as much damage as the fossil fuel alternatives. So this is, I think, also where clusters can play a key role. We will see that they can help in aggregating supply, trying to smoothen out that supply chain. They can connect all the necessary actors. They can provide market intelligence and even help translate technical potential eventually into economic reality. So what we will try to use this in kicking off this business modeling process is, as I said, a practical, simplified business model canvas. And we're going to use it as an early stage screening tool. There are a lot of tables that you'll find online which already set out the business canvas model. I think it's something that is widely used and very well recognized. I'm not going to repeat it here as a table, but actually just look into the questions that the table demands from us, and we're going to use that as an early screening tool. So at this stage, we're not going to look to use it as a detailed business plan, but rather a structured way to test whether an opportunity is structurally viable before committing significant resources. So the simplified business model canvas is widely used because it is practical, easy to apply, and recognized worldwide. Of course, we are dealing with the bioeconomy and bio-based bioeconomy. So our thinking will be inherently anchored in sustainability and in circularity and in revalorization of residues and waste. And for this reason, when we use this business model canvas, we extend it and arrive at what we might call a bioeconomy business model canvas. And here it's important to remember that bio-based solutions are not automatically sustainable simply because they rely on renewable resources. With the bioeconomy initiatives, we consider a much broader set of factors. These can include environmental impacts across the entire value chain, the pressure on limited biomass and land resources, We must consider competing use of biomass for food, for materials, energy, or soil health. And always keep in mind this cascading principle, meaning that biomass should be directed towards its highest value and most efficient use. The long-term system effects and the overall resource efficiency must also be borne in mind. And then we can consider as we're looking at our business model canvas, what societal benefits are also present. Do we create further local employment? Do we incorporate rural regeneration, etc.? So again, I just want to say it's noted that the bioeconomy business model, for it to work, we're going to need social acceptance and regional legitimacy. These are crucial for the success of a bioeconomic business model, because without the local support and visible benefits for the territory and for the region, even technically sound projects will face resistance in uptake, and resistance in finding the partnership network that is required to make it happen, and therefore the innovation will struggle to move forward. So the bioeconomy business models are therefore not only about economic performance, but they will look to create value on an economic, an environmental, and also a societal level. In order to make this example, to make our conversation today more concrete, I've thought of a small example. It's a simplified example that we can keep in mind as we move through the business model canvas. It's an example which is illustrative, but the questions that we discuss and apply, but these questions which we discuss can be applied to any type of side stream valorization and to any product. Although it is hypothetical in most parts, the example is inspired by real conversations that I've had with startups working on similar concepts. So for the sake of our example, let's imagine a farmer or a producer who wants to develop a sustainable bio-based side stream business, which could be based on the production of construction panels, for example, from agricultural byproducts or recovered biomass. I think this is quite a general example by now. And the idea is to transform this low-value residue into a high-value building material. This approach extends the useful life of the biomass and reduces waste. And at the same time, it has the potential to create additional income streams for the farmer or producer, to generate local economic activity, and possibly create new employment opportunities as well. Importantly, I think it's also clear that it responds to what appears to be a growing market demand for low carbon and resource efficient construction products. And so this example will help us to stay practical and to explore how this business model canvas can be applied in a bioeconomy context. So the business model canvas makes us ask some serious questions about our innovation or about our intended potential business stream. So the first question concerns the side stream itself. And here we need to ask ourselves, or the innovator needs to ask himself or herself, do we actually have a reliable resource base or a reliable feedstock supply chain that can support a stable production volume? Here we need to consider carefully and just jot it down on a piece of paper. What volumes are available? Are these feedstock volumes seasonal, or does it vary throughout the season? Are there just high points where we have got a lot of this waste or not? Are they geographically concentrated, or are they widely dispersed? Possibly we're going to need more than just one farm or a number of farms, and we need to see how geographically dispersed it is, because this is going to influence our logistics later on. And most importantly, if we do have some kind of a constant supply, can it be secured through agreements, coordination, or cooperative structures? So in our example, this means how many tons of husks or biomass are constantly available, where are these located, and whether farmers would be willing to commit to supplying this material year after year and year around. Because without a predictable supply, there is no real business, and it's just an idea. It would be terrible to set up a whole business on the back of the innovation, only then to find out that once we have real orders on the table, we cannot service those contracts and basically essentially make a big loss and disappoint a lot of people along the chain. The second question concerns the product itself. We've got an idea and we've gone through the road mapping. Now we again, and now that we know that we have the resources to consistently provide a flow, a supply chain, we need to look again at exactly what we are going to produce with it. Are we looking for a commodity product where margins may be low but volumes high? And how will that affect and relate to the supply chain? Or are we targeting a very specialized high value niche? Or maybe the supply chain actually pushes us in that direction? Are there several possible applications for the material? So can we diversify and can we incorporate that into later mitigations to possible risks? And if so, which one offers the most realistic and attractive market opportunity? Because the choice of the product and what shape it takes will determine what follows: the required technology, the investment level, the target customers, and also eventually the achievable price. So again, going back to our example, it means deciding whether the maize husks and residues are best suited for insulation panels or acoustic boards, furniture components, or perhaps other applications, and which of these markets offer the strongest potential. This will again also influence the partners that we will choose to keep that supply chain to market at that point running consistently. The next question that comes to mind, of course, is the customer. Here, we need to jot down as we move from the product side to the market side, we need to be really realistic. Who will buy this product? Which sector are we targeting? And where is that market located? Is it local? Is it regional? Is it further away? And then we must look at it also from a logistic point of view. Can we actually service that market? Can we get the product to where the customer is? And what does that involve? Does that involve breaking the sustainability of a supply chain from a bioeconomy perspective? Are we introducing a further CO2 into our chain? Then we also start looking at, when we're looking at the customer, we also start looking at which share of that market can we actually expect to capture. And here is also a short look at what the competition looks like. Are they already accessing that market, and how much of that market is left for us to move into? So the product only becomes a business when there is a clearly identifiable customer who is willing and able to buy, and importantly, that we can actually service. So again, looking back at our example, we might look at construction companies, building material distributors, renovation programs, and then getting a feeling for if they would actually consider buying these panels. Okay, so the next question is in regards to the, I think I might have jumped. Simplify. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. So the next question is the value proposition. And I like to mix this with the unique selling, our unique selling point. And here we'd like to really sit down and consider um, why the customer would choose our product instead of existing alternatives. Can we come in at a product that is competitive on price? Or does our product offer better performance? Are there sustainability advantages that we can advertise with our product, such as lower carbon footprint or circular material content that would raise our product above, head and shoulders above the existing products? And does the customer and would this product perhaps help the customer to meet regulatory requirements or green procurement? So in bioeconomy, the value proposition often combines economic performance with environmental and regional benefits, and this is a very important aspect, but it can only provide medium to long-term environmental impact if it is economically self-supporting. So in our example, again, the question becomes, can the maize-based panels offer convincing combination of performance, of price, and of sustainability that makes them attractive compared to conventional construction materials? Okay, as I mentioned before, um, at some point we have to look and really write down all the partners that would need to be involved in making this happen. And importantly, a consideration of the stability of those partnerships. No bioeconomy business, as I've mentioned before, can operate alone as a standalone. And so we really got to jot down and think who needs to be involved all the way along the value chain. Who's going to supply the feedstock? Who's going to handle the collection? Who's going to handle the logistics? Who will provide the processing technology? Who manufactures, distributes, and installs the final product? And who provides financing or investment, bridging financing, perhaps to make it all happen? And most importantly, as I've said before, is how can these relationships be secured and stabilized over time? Now that we've got most of our ducks in a row, we can start we can start looking at the cost structure. We can start asking where will the money be spent and how much will it cost us to actually get that product to market. Over here, we're just really still interested in identifying the main cost drivers. Is it collection and transport of the biomass? Is it energy? Is it the processing costs? Is it labor costs that's going to be a major expense? Or perhaps is there going to be storage and distribution costs? We need to help our members apply their minds to all of this early on. They need to think, are these costs fixed or are they going to depend and maybe even increase exponentially depending on the scale? And which ones are uncertain or sensitive to external factors such as energy prices or transport distances. Um, in our example, again, this would include the costs of collecting the maize residues from the dispersed farms, of drying, storage, processing the materials, and transporting eventually the finished panels to the market. So to understand these cost drivers early helps us to see whether the concept has a realistic economic foundation. Finally, we need to look at the risks. It's very, very beneficial if we can help the innovator to consider the risks early on and already to figure out if there would be a way to overcome those risks should those risks materialize. So regarding the feedstock availability, uncertainty, one was to think, well, how would I secure it? How would I react to counterbalance a drop of supply? Are there other sources of feedstock, maybe a little bit further away, which could carry me over? But I need to have a plan in place. As I said, if we build a whole supply chain and then don't have those resources available, the whole supply chain fails right at the beginning. We need to think early, how would one react in that scenario? Will the market adopt the product quickly enough? This is another consideration. We can see that it's an emerging market, and we can see that there are customers that are slowly turning towards sustainability. But how long can I, or can the member, or can the innovator carry the innovation and even the supply chain eventually, if we're already up and running, before our own resources run dry? Do we have something in place, bridging finance, an investor with deep pockets who is willing to carry that risk and mitigate that risk for us? Um, One must keep an eye on the regulatory barriers that exist. What certifications, what permits are required in this specific technology? Are these being addressed? When is the final decisions due? Um, are we actually going to be have the kind of freedom to operate from a regulatory perspective by the time that the supply chain is ready to go? Um, there can be technical risks, as we've mentioned before, um, when we scale, and one must really sit down and think, but is this manageable? How would we react in that situation? What are exactly the risks when scaling up, and how would we counter them? Investment risks, what happens if the investor is no longer interested? What happens if we run out of money? How would we manage that, and who would be willing to take on that risk? If this is already mapped out during the process before start, then we will already know, have a better idea on the eventual success of the business. So in our example, the risk may include fluctuations in feedstock, delays in construction certification, the possibility that production costs remain higher than competing materials. There can also be a risk that the fire retardants standards may change. And how will we then be able to adapt to the new standards? So yeah, really the question is this concept structurally and economically viable enough to justify moving forward? I'm so sorry, I saw that I didn't move on to the next slide. So if everybody would like to look at that, that was the slide on question 7. So now we move on and we start moving from assumption to evidence. The business model canvas was, as I said, largely based on assumptions. We're jotting down a few ideas, we're identifying the cost structures, we're identifying all the various players and so on. And now that we have formed a picture of the resources, the product, the customer, the economics, we move to progressively replace those assumptions with evidence. So now this is the second stage of applying this model. And we do this through moving through a sequence of validation steps: demand validation, value and price validation, financial assessment, and then eventually the investment decision. And at each step, hopefully uncertainty is reduced, the concept becomes more grounded in market reality. So as I said, the first step is to validate the demand. And here we want to find out, as I said before, do the customers actually need this product, and what performance standards should be met, and what volumes they would like to have it delivered at. And this can only be tackled by actually moving into the market and finding potential customers and speaking to them directly. Yes, we can do market analysis and benchmark against existing solutions, but here we really need to do surveys, go actually speak to potential buyers, in our example, potential construction companies and distributors and furniture makers and ask them exactly, would you buy this product? What standards must it meet? And how much of it do they think that they could need? Once we have this hard knowledge, we can enter that into our business model canvas as confirmed. And once that demand is confirmed, we can then move on to the next step to validate the value proposition and the price. We know what the customer wants. We can now start looking at exactly the shape, the form of our product, what it should look like. Remember, in our example with the panels, we need to ask that customer, what should the panels look like? What are the dimensions? What is useful to you? And now that we know that, we can look at the production cycle and see that we actually come out with a product that that customer actually wants, rather than dictating to the customer, this is what we've got, you need to use it. Now we can start zeroing in on the price. We can look at what prices already exist for similar panels in the market, and we can start seeing if we can produce a panel to the correct specifications that actually compete at those levels, at those price levels. And even if we come in at a slightly higher price, if there's a premium segment that might be willing to pay for that sustainability aspect, a performance aspect, or even just the fact that it might be locally sourced. So now at this stage, many of the concepts become adjusted. They take shape. Sometimes they are stopped because we realize that we cannot meet the market specifications and requirements, or in fact that there isn't so much of a market as what we thought there might have been, or that the customers are actually not interested in our product. And if the market conditions do actually support our viable price. By viable price is like what we can afford to bring it forward for. So the next step is to move into the financial assessment. The demand and price conditions appear realistic, and now we need to still not go into a full business plan, but we start estimating the key economic elements. We start putting prices to everything that is part of our process. So what does the feedstock cost us? What is the processing cost? What is exactly the operational cost? This is where we introduce this CAPEX and the OPEX. And what is the expected sales price and volumes, investment requirements, and even an indication of the break-even point. Now we start putting all those numbers together, and we can start really to see that this makes economically sense at scale. Once we are sure that we've got a good economic business case, we can start shifting towards implementation and investment readiness. So by investment readiness, I really mean that we want to present the business as functional, as operational, as having every indicator of success. So now those customers that we validated, we're going to go back to them and we're going to ask for strong demand signals. Can we have a letter of intent? Can we have a letter of support? Can we have some kind of a confirmation in writing that they are interested in the product? Can we have a pre-order? That would be the strongest. At this point, we really lay out the cost structures and consolidate them, and we confirm that the location and logistics models are clearly defined. This is, I would say, where we also have our contracts laid out with our supply chains, where we can show eventually a possible investor that we've got everybody locked into the feedstock supply, and we've got our logistics fully calculated and contracted, and we've considered every aspect of the partnership that builds that supply chain and ensures that that's contractually and by word, the partner structure is properly integrated and confirmed as a working unit. This is what I mean by location and logistics models. Yeah. And often this is where bioeconomy ideas struggle in making that final step into securing that entire supply chain, and not because the concept itself is weak, but because the ecosystem might still be fragmented. This is again where I think that the clusters can play a very important role. As I said, they can help to aggregate that supply. They can facilitate offtake discussions. And by offtake, I mean that we're going to look for potential first buyers of volume. This would be an off-taker, where we're going to try to lock off-takers into some kind of a long-term agreement that they will buy the product, and the clusters can help to facilitate these discussions. They've got all their connections and their networks spread out throughout the sector, and they can spot the opportunities and make these the connection between the required partners. They can help to coordinate the actors across the value chain and thereby strengthen the project credibility and connect initiatives to funding and investment opportunities. In other words, the cluster helps to transform a promising concept into a coordinated investment. Ready ecosystem project. Yeah? The last few things I'll say is about market pull. We often hear speaking of market pull, and that most successful projects are driven by this market pull. And the principle is that the starting point is not or should not be what we can produce, but who actually needs the product, what problem it solves, and what price the market is actually willing to solve that project. That's the market pull, and that is what should be drawing, what should be pulling the technology, the innovation towards the market. It should guide the technology, it should scale the operations, and also be the basis of the investment decision. However, because we are bioeconomy actors, we want to look not only at market pull, we say that's not enough. We want to work with biological resources that are limited and have multiple possible users. So at each decision point, we will also want to ask whether this is the best and most sustainable use of that biomass. Are we applying cascade funding principles and directing the resource towards its highest value application? And this, once we've got that project going that is both market driven and system optimal, then we know that we are working within a sustainable market pool. So I'm drawing now to an end. In conclusion, I'd like to just go back to the bigger picture, where bioeconomy success is not simply finding new uses for biomass, but it's about building solutions that the market actually needs, that are financially viable, and that bring together all the actors required to operate a sustainable and efficient value chain. Those are the solutions that are going to actually create strong environmental impact over the medium and the long term. Naturally, these solutions will create value beyond the purely economic dimension. They will deliver environmental benefits, supporting rural economics and contributing to long-term resource efficiency. And this is exactly where clusters and ecosystem leaders play a critical role by connecting the supply to the demand, coordinating the partners, as we've said, helping reduce the risk, and helping promising ideas move from concept to investment and real deployment. In the slide, I've included some of the examples that I also found on illustrating where market demand and economic viability and ecosystem coordination come together to build circular and bio-based value chains. That's it from me. I thank everybody for their attention. and I pass it back to Maida.
Thank you very much, Francesco. Now we will proceed with the next section, which is devoted, as I already mentioned, to share with you two successful best cases. So I would like to welcome David De Coaster, which started his dairy company 11 years ago after he had made cheese with his students as a catering school in Ghent. He's not trained as food technologist, but is a cook. And about the company, using his own words, he described it as the best thing is the things he learned and the people he met. So, David, please, the floor is yours. I think you're muted. Uh, I, you're muted. I cannot hear you.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Perfect. Thank
I'm David. I'm a cheesemaker from Belgium. Thank you, Maide, for the introduction, and thank you, Francesco, for the presentation where I recognized almost everything in my business cases or what I am doing. I started the cheese factory, let's say 11 years ago, and in Belgium we got a lot of traction with our berlumi. It's a halloumi style cheese for grilling and barbecuing. But we also make other more Mediterranean style cheeses. I will show you this slide, not to brag about the growth of the company, but to show you how many cheese whey we have as a residue from the cheese making. So we grew from very small to, let's say, a mid-sized cheese factory in Belgium, and that's how you have to see it as well, because when you make cheese in your own sink, well, then you just throw away the whey. When you are a bigger factory, you can start spray drying and finding other solutions, but you have to see it from my perspective as a mid-sized a growing cheese factory. Maybe some technical things. So we start from milk, and we make 115% of cheese with it. But then you have a leftover of what we call the first cheese whey, and it still has quite some fats in it and a lot of protein in it. This protein, we cannot put them in the berlumi cheese. It's another kind of it's whey protein. It's not the casein you will find in cheese. So it's not that easy. So we have this first whey, and it's quite a lot. From thousand liters of milk, you have more than 800 of liters of whey, which has a lot of still has a lot of value. So I started to make ricotta from the whey, which is done in Mediterranean countries. But in Belgium, there's absolutely no market for ricotta, so that was not the way to go. Um, this is the berlumi and this is the ricotta. But still, I wanted to do something with the whey because it from since I started making cheese, I saw this huge mass of cheese whey going to feed stock, not food stock. It goes to the pigs. They like it, but I prefer to give it to people instead of to the pigs. Here you see some pictures of the ricotta in our former cheese factory, where you see the ricotta lying on top of the cheese whey after the whey is cooked to 90 degrees. So it's a very good product. It's also a very healthy product because the whey proteins are very um, well, let's say, I don't know how to say it in English, but they are very good proteins. This slide, I'm not going to read everything, but there is no such thing as cheese whey. Depending on which cheese you make, you will always end up with a different kind of cheese whey. But in our case, the berlumi, the grilling cheese, we have a very sweet whey, and it's still a blank canvas where you can do a lot of things with this sweet whey. If you make labne or yogurt, you will have a sour whey, but if you make yogurt technically correct, you should have a whey which is low in proteins and low in fats. So remember, we have a very nutritious and good way to do something with it. So my reasoning, and I can see reasoning is misspelled I have a typo in the title. So my reasoning was, what do I have to do with this whey? It has only 6 to 7% dry matter, so I have to do something with the whey here. If I start transporting it, I saw a lot of possibilities. You can do a lot of things with whey, but if I want to make a good, viable business concept, I will have to do it myself, and I will have to do it here. Since I'm not a very big company, we have 2.5 million in revenue, and we are 10 people in the factory. To give you some info, I needed something with low capex because we are already growing on other products and things like that. I'm 100% owner. I do not have external funding, so I wanted to do it with my own money and staying profitable all the way. And I have to use it where you otherwise need water because it's 6% dry matter. That means the rest is water. Since I'm a trained chef before I started cheese making, so I was immediately thinking on culinary uses. A lot of research is already been done. That's why I show this picture. It's a master study from the University of Ghent, and I show it because it started to trigger me to keep the cheese whey in the food chain and not in the feed chain or other things like the cascading effect in action. I started asking myself these questions. Is there consumer demand? Not going to repeat this because Francesco already told this, but it's from my own experience. And then I came up with like say a top 8, and it's not just a top 8. I tried almost everything. I tried to make soft drinks with it. It doesn't have a lot of success because it's technically complicated. I made soup with it, and I'm not just made soup with it, but I came up with a solution to pressure cook vegetables in an alkaline environment. So you have a very good caramelization reactions with the vegetables. And then I added fermented sour cheese whey to compensate for the low acidity of the caramelized vegetables. Delicious soup. I had one Belgian retailer who was interested, and then he asked for, well, we want to have 3 seasonal soups all the time. Like in spring, we want to have something with asparagus, and in winter, we want to have something with pumpkin. Um, Tested everything out. They tasted it, was very good, but all of a sudden, I didn't want to become a soup company. I am a cheese factory. It was also high capex because if you do it on your stovetop in a pressure cooker, it's okay. But if you want to do it with 200 or 500 liters, you have like a soup bomb. This was a little bit of my inspiration. It's a popular soup in the United States where they make a cheese soup with a lot of vegetables in it. I worked together with the local cake factory to make rice pudding from the cheese whey, but it failed because of a lot of reasons Francesco mentioned. We make bread with it. We still make bread with it. Not we, but we have a social impact bakery not so far from us, and they make bread with organic cheese whey. It's not a lot. It's like, say, it's 100 liters of cheese whey a week, but it's delivered to an organic retail chain in Belgium. So it's a product, it's a project that is still running, and maybe yeah, things can expand later. But also here you have a lot of some problems, like right now there's lactose in the bread, and then yeah, they have to declare it. So it's yeah, everywhere you go, you have these objections to not do it. We just sold the whey, and we still do. A lot of people come and buy our whey, or we even deliver the whey if it's a lot of volume. We made this farinata. It's a chickpea bread. It's an invention from a student who we worked together with. This is an existing example. It's Brunos. This is a cheese from Scandinavia where the whey is cooked and until all the water is vaporized. But it's a lot of capex as well. And then this is the ultimate solution. Sell your whey for 19 euros a liter. It's it's a Dr. Vogel. It's well, that's what they say. It's of course a more a marketing product. You can sell whey for 19 euro a liter. It's a solution, but then you need, I think, an exceptional marketing team. But if this bottle is 19 euro the liter, then I have more than 500,000 liters every 3 days. So it's a nice example to, yeah, it can be in economic viable, but there's objections and laws in the way. So where we are now, I come back to my first, one of my first slides. We start with the milk, we make barlumi, we have the second whey, we make the ricotta from it. But now you also see the paneer cheese. And paneer cheese is an Indian style cheese. Remember, we make these more Mediterranean exotic style cheeses for the Belgian market. That's something that is working. We are recognized for it. So paneer fits very well in our with our other products, and we make this paneer with 15% whey and 50% fresh Belgium local cow milk. After paneer production, you see the second whey. It has no fat, it has almost no proteins, and it does still have the lactose. So all the proteins and the fats are valorized in the cheese whey. So now we have this paneer as well, and it's going great. It's next to our barlumi in Belgian retail, and it sells. So it's complementary with other things. We can use a lot of the existing infrastructure, so we can keep capex low at the beginning. But right now it's working that good, so we are investing in a new production line for the paneer. It's about 500,000 investment to make the paneer because we have to make it together with the barlumi. It's also when you have this first way, it's impossible to transport it or to cool it down and to keep it for a few days to make paneer a few days later. You really have to make it together. So it's an objection we had to overcome. The paneer is 500 liter of whey, 500 liter of milk. So this is a nice example. If I make paneer from 500 liter of milk, I have 90% of yield. If I the yield on the mix is 12%, but if I then look at the yield on that same 500 liter of milk, I have a 24% of yield cheese out of 500 liters of milk. So it's let's say a no-brainer from a commercial standpoint. So here you can see the way before and after paneer production. On the left side, you see the first way, and on the right side, you can see the cheese way after paneer is produced. So it's very clear. You can even not see it very well in the picture, but it's a very clear way, which is essentially just milk, sugar, water. It's almost noon, so I will show you some pictures of our paneer with palak paneer with spinach and mustard sauce, or these tacos with paneer, or it's almost time to barbecue here. So these are a few things from our what we do with the paneer. You have to know it. Paneer is one of the most eaten cheeses in the world, but in India. So that's our task is now to make it more popular in Belgium. So the new challenges, because I have to repeat, my solution is a solution for a mid-sized company. When you grow bigger, other solutions may be the best options. We keep on growing, so we will have new challenges in the future concerning the whey. Will we have enough whey in the future? If paneer is more successful than barlumi, we have some kind of a problem. The second way, so after paneer production, it's not yet sufficient for discharging in sewers. So it's collected by a few farmers, pig farmers, but of course the feed value is much lower, so the logistic costs are higher. Right now we are looking at filtration techniques for lactose removal or to thicken the second way so it becomes more interesting for the farmers to collect it. And the ultimate solution for me, it's so when we have the second way, it's sugar water, it's lactose water, but with enzymatic reactions, you can make glucose and galactose from the lactose, and then you can make beer from it. So we work together with University of Ghent, and we are we were in the project Wakeaholic, where we made very nice beer, and then we have almost 3% of alcohol for free. But yeah, the beer market is not going very well, so maybe I have to think about a soft drink from the second way to do that as well. So that's a little bit my story about this specific, little bit unknown waste stream of the cheese making process. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, David, for sharing your story with us and also challenges that you have faced and how it has evolved. We will now proceed with the next best case. So I would like to welcome now Victoria Giraldez, which is the director of the project office at Protiberia. And she's trained as a biologist. Protiberia is a biotech startup focused on industrial research and development using Teneberio molitol, which is the yellow Melbourne to produce protein and lipids. So these ingredients target not only animal feed, but also human nutrition. And all insect-derived byproducts are valorized through circular pathways across multiple markets. She has been in Protiveria since its launch in 2022, coordinating and supporting the company growth through innovation projects. She works closely tied to applied research, both internally and also through national and international collaborations. So, Victoria, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Maider. So, good morning, everyone. Well, first of all, thank you to Bioeconomy Giants initiative for inviting me, representing Protiveria, to share our experience, the growth of our company, see, from 2022. Yeah, my name is Victoria, and I was here since the beginning of this journey. And I want to share not only what we do, but I think is the concept of the webinar, but what we have learned along the way building a bioeconomy company, but from a rural area. So in 2022, one of the founders owned an abandoned mushroom production facility in Villamalea. It's a small rural village in Albacete, Spain. And this is how it looks. We have it now like the pilot plant too. So we still own it. And she thought that instead of selling it or letting it deteriorate because it was abandoned, she asked herself how can she give a new life to this infrastructure. So that question brought together the four partners that started this company, and insect farming emerged as the most viable option. Why insect? Why insect in this location, in this infrastructure? Because structurally, a mushroom facility already has what insect really needs, that is control parameters like temperature and humidity, indoor modular spaces that are separated, and conditions compatible with insect breeding in general. So what started as the intention to reuse this building became the foundation of the company, Protiveria. Why insects? Even if we have all the infrastructure, why insects? Or why there is this local and global necessity for breeding insects instead of another livestock? Well, when we look at the context, several factors align. First, as we know, global protein demand is increasing rapidly globally. Traditional livestock needs big areas of land and produce greenhouse gases. And Europe depends heavily on imported soybean or fish meal protein for feeding this feedstock. So on the contrary, insects offer a high quality protein with efficient feed conversion. The use of land that we need is little because we can grow the insect in height. So we don't need a large extension. And we can operate in a circular production system. So it's more sustainable at the end. For us, insects were a logical answer at the same time at local, because that's the way that we can improve rural areas, and at the same time, a global challenge for this necessity of protein. So what we do actually, our original idea and what we do at the same time, it was to produce animal proteins and fats from this yellow mealworm or tenebro molitor for animal nutrition in a sustainable way. And we use for that subproducts to feed the insects. We use wheat bran, but we are always researching on using other subproducts because, as Francesco said, so we have to look at the availability, price also. So we need to research on these subproducts. And then we transform the subproducts with the insect reading and we obtain different products. Our portfolio focuses on 3 insect-based products, which value is its high digestibility, sustainability, and functional benefits. And we have these 3 products. The hydrated larvae that are used for exotic birds mostly, and mealworm meal and mealworm fat for premium pet food, and livestock protein supplements. We look at it like supplements or premium pet food because livestock feed market is big, incredible big. So we should have to produce a lot of tons weekly. So one of the first solution was to focus on these specific markets, like they are a little more specific, pues, premium pet food and protein supplements. So Francesco told about that, but specifically what we found since the 2022, the challenge what we found was regulation, consumer reluctancy, and scaling. And this is common in insect industry. We found these 3 challenges mostly. In regulation, although the European Framework for Insect Production (ESIX), in practice, the national implementation, in this case in Spain, I'm sure it happens in other countries, can lag behind EU legislation, so it's not so well implemented in the country. And then novel food for human consumption. This authorization is complex and time consuming. So it's difficult to just allow us to sell to human consumption. What we learned and what efforts we did to overpass this. First, I think it's very important to have a constant dialogue with authorities, not just occasional, but we have to make pressure or to be heard. And it's really important to be part of some association like IPIF in Europe or APADI in Spain, that, yeah, together we can grow. We can grow more. This is for regulation. Then we have, of course, the consumer reluctancy. In this case, producing insects is complex, but explaining to people for them to consume is even more complex. And there are still the cultural barriers because it's not a food, an ingredient that is consumed culturally in Spain and in other countries, yeah, like in Asia or Latin America. And there is a lack of information and misinformation. So, yeah, news, information that is bad communicated, yeah, it has a lot of consequences in the sense of human consumption. In this case, our strategy was to invest in communication. We participate in a lot of communication activities like conference, assist to fairs, and other educational activities. And we did a really strategic focus on B2B animal nutrition markets. This allowed us to scale production and gain credibility before addressing direct human consumption. So is a previous step, we could say. And then we have the problem of scaling. Scaling insect production is not simply producing more larvae, but keeping the biological control. So it requires a high capital investment. So if you don't receive funding externally by an investor or public money, it's difficult. And we need a specific technology that is not commercially standardized because it's a new, a recent sector. And of course, automation and process control of all the steps. Because we had this realization that scaling biology, because they are insects at the end, they are animals, is not linear, and standardizing that on industrial scale requires constant innovation. For that reason, Protiveria make efforts in R&D projects. We have a big team of investigators, of researchers, sorry, and develop our own technology because it doesn't exist in the market. What we do is try to develop our own technology. This challenge made us take one of the most strategic decisions at Protiveria, and is what we are doing now, what our focus, and is adopting a decentralized production model. Instead of concentrating our production in one facility, like other European companies does, because we want to produce a lot, right? But it's the scaling part is the most difficult. So we thought of this decentralized production model. In what consists? It has three phases. In the first, Protiveria specializes in the most critical and technical phase, that is reproduction. With the use of technology, we ensure the survival and performance of the breeding population and produce high-quality eggs. These eggs then are shipped to a network of externalized farms in charge of just fattening the larvae under controlled condition and until they reach their optimal size. And it's in this point when Protiveria collects all of those larvae and process them in our industrial facility, obtaining our diverse product, what we showed before. So we don't do the complete process, but we are at the beginning and at the end. At the beginning, we produce the egg, producers fatten the larva, make it big, and then we process the products and sell it to the market. We can think about it like similar to integration systems like poultry or pig farming that we already know, but adapted to insects. So what started as a constraint, because it was the biggest challenge, is one of our main advantage and what we are doing now. So for our associated farms, what we do, they are independent agricultural operators who integrate the insect fattening in their activity. So Protiveria provides high quality eggs, standardized feeding protocols. We have our diets with a mix of subproducts. Then we offer automation and sieving technology, operational parameters and biological monitoring, and we offer a continuous technical support. So we always coordinate with them and tell them how to do all the process. For rural areas, this model represents something very important in the sense that it creates a new job, a new opportunity on top of existing agricultural activities in rural areas where agriculture is mostly what they have. So lessons, and this is a little of a recapitulation on what I talk in the challenge. Lessons that we learn in the way, and it's not only insect production, but all related to the context and the market. First, it's important and never develop a business without parallel regulatory planning, or at least some basic on that, because of course it is going to develop, but take it in account. Then communication is very important. It's not only marketing, but an essential part of the business, and it should be structural. And scaling is technological, in our context at least, is technological, but too biological and financial at the same time. So of course, the most important is to not be afraid to pivot. If I would talk with some entrepreneur, because the first idea is always going to develop, and the market will help you to shape this innovative idea you could have. Well, this is our team. We are 15 persons, 15 people. And yeah, it's very important to have a team that is a multidisciplinary one, because we need scientific expertise, engineering, industrial management. So I want to thank all of them to join us in this journey. And thank you very much for your attention. And I will be happy to answer your question when we have the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Victoria. I think we have no questions in the chat, but I would like to raise 3 questions, one for each one of you. I will start with you, Victoria. How you decided or selected the best funding for you? You mentioned that in order to scale up, you needed funding and so on. So how you selected the best funding opportunity or alternative that fitted you?
Well, I mean, the funding that we receive is for the projects that we participate for European and national context. So we don't have an external investor, like an angel investor or something, but it's more for our R&D team, the projects that we develop.
Okay, so for you, the best way was to not externalize or have an external investor, but instead finding funding for this research, continuous research that you needed to perform. Okay, thank you very much. Have one also for you, David. You mentioned that the biggest market is in India, of course. Have you ever thought about sending or trying to apply to this market with your cheese?
No, I haven't tried it, and we are not at all ready for things like that. We grow quite fast in our local market with an interesting choice of product. So that's not what we want to do. I also, maybe from, say, an ecological standpoint, it's not a very good idea to start producing cheese in Belgium and to export it to India. They know how to make paneer in India.
And you will have a lot of
So we
confidence.
concentrate on the Belgian market. We want to be a professional company, but I don't have the ambition right now to expand very quick in.
Okay, but you mentioned that it's local or is national?
Well, it's national in Belgium.
Okay.
We are everywhere in Belgium with our Berlumi grilling cheese and with our paneer and also with our labneh.
Have you ever, by any chance, assessed what yes, selling not in India, of course, because the competence will be huge, but maybe the surrounding countries that in some cases might be closer than other points of
Yeah,
the
we have
ocean.
some clients in France and in the Netherlands, but it's more a business to business thing. I don't think we are ready
Already.
for, let's say, the French market because then yeah, you lose that local aspect, and then you have to put in more, yeah, marketing, and we are evolving to a real production company.
Okay. And then a last question, really quick for Francesca. So, if you would give advice to any potential stakeholder that would like to deploy an initiative, just as Victor I mentioned with Protiberia or David with his company, what would be the first 5 to 10 steps you will advise him to take?
Well, firstly, let me congratulate Victoria and David. They both look like very, very, very interesting SMEs and medium-sized businesses that you've built. I find it quite nice how we've aligned somehow in what we've said, even though we didn't prepare this together, we came out at the same place. The first thing is that I think, to answer your question, is that it's a real thing. If you're going to start and you want to take an innovation to a business level, it obviously can be done at some kind of a hobby level, but one must realize that it is a serious thing and needs some serious attention and needs serious thought behind every part. We watch a lot of especially now on YouTube, there's a lot of podcasts on how you can quickly get an innovation to market, and it's a quick get rich quick scheme. You just have to do these 3 steps and you get there. But it takes a lot of, as you know, and you've done your mapping, that takes a lot of steps in curating the product, speaking to all the various players that we've already outlined in our session today, and getting it all together and off the ground. And so I would think the first place to start is obviously with a good idea, and then immediately validate, does it already exist out there or does something similar exist? This would point towards that, yes, there is some kind of a market. See if your idea differentiates from that. Check that you can actually do that in all the steps that you need to do. And then start all those business modeling tools if you're starting to get serious about it, to check before you start spending money and time and resources on something which might turn out in the end to be a no-go. I think, as David set out very carefully, nicely, is to be careful and work within yourself, to work within like the scope of your idea and of your ability to reach the markets. We just saw that India is not really a market, also because of just it's so distant, it's so far away, what the costs would be, what the logistics would be. So to work within a realistic model, I think is very good. Too many times, and then I think what Victoria showed very, very clearly there is that risk versus mitigation. Get that right, so that you know that once you go in, that you are going to be able to jump over the challenges, and know that at the beginning, if you already manage to identify those risks and identify that you cannot beat those risks, then it's already a strong indicator of which way you should turn. The last thing I'll say is I think there's many EU projects that invest money into research and innovation and so on, and also, of course, in the bio industry and so on. And they always have this exploitation work package. And I think this is really the opportunity for the innovators that are involved in those projects to really take it seriously and study that innovation package, the exploitation work package, to make sure that they're getting the value from that, to really go through all the steps that exploitation package actually offers. That's it.
Thank you very much, Francesco. So I would like to thank our 3 speakers for today. for participating in this webinar and for sharing those practical insights. I would like to finalize the webinar by very shortly summarizing the two materials that will be delivered together with this webinar recording that will be available in our webpage. So we have one material that is devoted to funding and support instruments, in which we provide the different schemes in public financing, in private investment, and also blended finance, to get a hint on what are the difference in between. And also we have one material devoted to communication and visibility tools, in which we tackle the core channels to activate communication and visibility, some actions that take a very few minutes or that are easy to implement, ready to use platforms to create professional materials, and also some content formats that work best in our experience. We also provide some metrics that matter in order to monitor this communication and visibility. Yeah, and some tools to communicate the results. So those two materials will be uploaded in our web page in the coming days, together with the recording. So please take a look. I think they could be very useful, especially for clusters and entities representing primary producers, to address these issues. Okay, so thank you very much to the participants and to the speakers for joining today's webinar, and I wish you a very happy day.